welcome to It's the Audacity for Me. I am your host, Rhea Davis, and on this week's episode, we are talking all about something that everyone wonders about at some point or another, and that is your life's purpose and how to discover it. We'll answer some common questions like what even is a life purpose and where do you find it, talk about different layers of purpose, and I'm going to share some practical, actionable steps that you can take to discover your life's purpose. Before we get started on jumping into your life's purpose, though, let's talk about some common mistakes and misconceptions that people have about their purpose. People think that they can be on track or off track, or that there is one default purpose, or that there's a meaning behind your purpose. Like it's either bad or good, or you are bad or good for not reaching it. Maybe living with no purpose, or thinking that your purpose isn't your choice. Let's address the number one limiting belief that I see when it comes to your purpose and living your life purpose and all of that. And that's thinking that there's just this one big grand purpose, that you're either on track or you're off track to reach it, and that you are either a success or a failure depending on whether or not you fulfilled it. But the thing about purpose is that everyone has one, and there's definitely more than one. People make the mistake of thinking that they just have this big plan and they have to make themselves fit into it. It's like a predestination or something, or they have to search it out. Or they might be living without a purpose. And if that's the case, they might be drifting through the motions. If you're living without purpose, you might feel like you're in survival mode, where the purpose is just to survive. And really, it's deeper than that, but maybe there's some lessons that need to be learned there. If you're living your life without purpose, you're going to lack a sense of autonomy and lack of a feeling of control over your life. You'll feel like you're drifting. Maybe you'll feel like you're stuck. And you'll feel insecure because you don't have this confidence in who you are and where you're going. And this can just not be so good, right? It can result in general unhappiness and just apathy for life in general. And that doesn't sound like something that anyone wants, right? The good thing is your purpose is your purpose, right? You can have whatever purpose you want. It's yours and yours alone. It's your purpose after all. So I want you to think about life, and this might be a mindset shift for some of you. Life is either happening for you or it's happening to you. And what I mean by this is that you can see life as always happening for your benefit, for your greatest good and the good of everyone involved. Or you can see it as just a series of unfortunate events that just occur day after day until you die, which is kind of morbid and sad. So let's not think about it that way. Life is happening for you. You get to choose your purpose. It's not some predetermined thing. Or maybe it is. All right. So hear me out on this. This gets a little bit confusing. Your purpose isn't predetermined or written in the stars or whatever, in the sense that there isn't really one right path or direction that your life is supposed to take. It's not pre-mapped out for you and you're just here to fill in the blanks, because that's not very individualized to you, is it? That doesn't make sense for your life experiences and everything that has cumulatively made you who you are in this very moment. So it's not predetermined in that way. There's no general path that you need to fit yourself into. That's completely up to you and the choices that you make and the choices that you have made up until this point in your life. The only way that your purpose is predetermined, though, so it's not in that way, but it can be in the way that the moment that you were born, the time you were born, all of that plays into the characteristics and traits and other things that make you you that are predetermined, like who your parents are, where you're born, the date and time. These are things that you had no control over. They weren't choices that you made. They're just when you were born. And if you believe in astrology or you follow astrology, it follows that same line of thinking, that where and when and all of that plays into who you are. So this might be why you're interested in the things that you are interested in, and that's why you would pursue a particular purpose. But it's always your choice. It's never going to be something that you don't want to do, or, something that you're not passionate about, things like that. That's not going to be your purpose. You don't have to fit yourself into the mold of this mysterious purpose. All right. So life is about balance, right? And the idea of purpose being predetermined is really a nature versus nurture type of discussion. How much of you is the things that have happened to you and the people and experiences that you've met and had, but also the place and time and DNA and all that stuff, the nature part. Life's kind of a balance between the two. And if you've ever been in a nature versus nurture debate, that's really where everybody lands, usually people land in the middle, where life is all about balance. Individual purposes are individual, but they do come together for good. And many of the personality traits that we carry aren't actually our identity, but more the passing down of beliefs and the perception of who we are. So think about your parents. If growing up they told you that you were outgoing, or they told you were shy, or they told you were smart, or they told you weren't smart, all of these things are going to play into how you see yourself, and personality traits that you might have that aren't actually personality traits. They're just the way that you've adapted to fit the environment that you're in. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you really want to go deeper and mess up your brain, you can look into epigenetics, which that's a whole nother episode in and of itself. But basically, it's just the study of how behaviors in our environment impact us at a genetic level, and how those genetic changes can be passed down to offspring. Again, along the same lines of the nature versus nurture debate, but even deeper. So a good example would be if, let's say, a person experiences trauma when their genetics change due to that trauma. And then that genetic change is passed on to their child. And that can go up to 7 generations. So you are carrying trauma in your genetics from previous generations. Again, an entire episode in and of itself, but it is really interesting to look into. And it's really a good example about how life is balanced. Individual purposes come together for a collective good, and it's simultaneously unique to you and for your highest good, while also for the collective good. So there are some things that happen when we're trying to find our purpose, or when we are following some of these misconceptions or limiting beliefs around purpose. We tend to assign a meaning to finding a purpose. And once you're able to lift this unnecessary pressure that you're putting on yourself, you're able to live a much happier, more fulfilling life. You can't put a label on your purpose, and you can't put that judgment on your purpose because it's so unique to you. And a judgment is really like a comparison to something else when you think about it. If I say this book is bad, I am comparing it to something else that was good. It has to be that way. That's the law of polarity. Things are just, everything has an opposite, basically. So you can't place that judgment when you don't have anything to compare it to, because your purpose is only your own. So you can't really be on track or off track, because, again, there's no common goal for anyone. Your purpose works together with common good, but that really, in my opinion, is something that's not for us to understand. We won't even understand fully our own purpose. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But in our lifetime, we have tons of purposes, and we can never see them all. So there's also different layers of purpose. Life's really just a game. And I think that as humans, we tend to really complicate it when it doesn't have to be. So even though life's just a game, have you ever played the game of Monopoly? it's all fun and games until someone takes things a little too seriously, and suddenly we're accusing the appointed banker of fraud, and chaos happens. And that's exactly what we do with life. We take things way too seriously, and we're meant to have fun. We're meant to learn. We're meant to level up. If you think about a video game or Monopoly or whatever, you can't level up until you've gained the tools and the skills that you need to beat the next level. You have to go through a series of challenges, and then usually you have like one big challenge at the end, and then you can level up and kind of start all over, but you're taking those skills and the tools and things, whatever, suits and armor, I don't know too much about video games, but you take that with you. And again, same way in life. Your purpose right now might to be learning a certain lesson. So that way you can level up to your next purpose. And the lesson learned in each level helps you succeed as you rise. And you might be thinking, well, what about somebody who gets to the top and then suddenly falls to the bottom? What if something happens and they lose everything or something like that? And in that case, I can't speak for everyone. I'm not all-knowing or anything like that. But I like to think that that's probably a lesson that they had to learn. Maybe they got there in the wrong way, or maybe they needed to lose everything financially to see how much they loved their wife or something. I don't know. I feel like I'm describing some sort of cheesy Hallmark movie, but it's the same thing, right? It's just lessons that you take with you. And this goes back to what I talked about earlier, seeing life happening for you. When you can see things that we like to label as bad or good or positive or negative, when they're all just lessons, life becomes so much more fun and positive and becomes more about just learning those lessons and leveling up. It's all just a game. So when we go through our life talking about leveling up, in a video game, there's not just one level. You don't just go through a series of challenges, beat a level, and then you're done. There's different levels. Just like in life, there's different purposes. I don't feel like we're meant to know all of our purposes. Think about all the roles that you have right now and that you have had in your life. Think about, for me, I'm a mom. I was a student at one point. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a wife. I'm a cousin to people. I'm a coworker. These are all roles that I play in my life. They are not who I am, but they're roles that I play. And in those roles, I serve a purpose. As a mother, I serve a purpose, right? As a wife, I serve a purpose. As a coworker, I serve a purpose. As an employee, as whatever, as all these things, I serve a purpose in those roles. And those alone are a handful of purposes. But then think about things like the butterfly effect, right? Something that you could do something over here and it affects somebody halfway across the world 3 years from now. And you would have no way of knowing that. And that could be a purpose. Maybe you were meant to do that thing to affect that person 3 years down the road or whatever it was. We also might be someone else's karma. You might be someone else's karma. You might be the person that saves the day. You know, everything operates from cause and effect. And everything is working together and everything is connected, serving the greater good. And when you can keep that in your mind, things become a lot easier. Again, I want to go back to life is happening for you and pushing you into these roles and these purposes and taking you to where you want to be and taking you to your dream life. So let's kill some of these limiting beliefs and let's dream big, because you do have a purpose. And if you're here today, if you're alive right now, you still have a purpose. All right. So what are some things that you can do to actually discover your purpose? I did promise some actionable steps that you could take. So what are they? You can, one of the biggest things when it comes to purpose is looking back at your childhood. Look at your inner child. You want to think about things that you were passionate about that maybe you no longer do. So for me, I used to go pick dandelions and blow the dead dandelions and make wishes. And I used to catch fireflies, and I used to like to sing and to paint. And I'm going to use singing as a really good example because as a child, I loved to sing, and I still do. But I never do it in front of anyone because I'm absolutely horrible at it. at it. And I have no problem admitting that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just not a talent that I have. It's not at all a skill. So I certainly know that singing is not my life's purpose. However, think back to when you were a child. And for me, when I think about me singing as a child, no one told me that I was bad at it. It wasn't until later, when I stopped being the cute little child and like the kid in middle school and high school, people were like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that in public. And these are people that loved me and, we're just trying to be sportive. But that stopped me from pursuing singing as a passion. And I mean, I'm glad it did because it's not good. I promise I will not be doing any singing on this podcast. But as a child, there's some things that maybe you no longer do that you really enjoyed. And our lives aren't meant to be monetized. Every hobby isn't meant to be monetized. Every skill isn't meant to be monetized. Think back to when you could do things just for fun and think about those things. What did you want to be when you grew up? And this third question is kind of a doozy. You might want to take a little time to think on this. Pause this episode if you have to and come back to it. But if your younger self could come visit you today, how would they feel? How would they feel about your life? How would they feel about you as a person? Would they like you? Would you guys be friends? That's something to think on. And it's definitely something to ponder. Also, what did you dream of as a kid? What were your daydreams about? What was your imagination doing? Where is the creativity? This is the time to pull that creativity, pull that passion back out, and look for a cause that's higher than yourself. So the first step for me is looking at your inner child and thinking about the things that you're passionate about. And then looking at something that's bigger than yourself. When you're working for something that's higher than yourself, you lose that lack of confidence that is based on what other people think about you and based on judgment from the outside world, because it's not about you. It's not about what you look like and your ability to do something or not do something or what you bring to the table. It's about how you can help the purpose that's higher than you with what you bring to the table. So the spotlight's no longer on you. It's on that greater purpose. So when you're looking at what you're passionate about and you're looking at a purpose or, a cause, something that's higher than you, look at where those start to combine. And then a third area that you can look at and just kind of ponder and think on is your elderly years, looking back. When you're looking back on your life, what's the impact or the mark that you want to make on the world? How do you want people to remember you? This can be hard, and it can be hard to think about these different versions of yourself meeting up. Is that the Christmas story with the ghosts of Christmas past and present and future? That's basically what you're doing here. You're looking at your life from a more bird's eye kind of view. And you're looking at what you want for yourself, what you want for your life, and who you want to be to make yourself happy, to light yourself up. And once you can find what it is that makes you happy, there's your purpose. So look back. It's easy to get caught up in your day-to-day, but make sure that you're taking time to reflect. With this question, with all the questions that we talked about, make sure that you're taking time to reflect and not just letting it go in one ear and out the other. Because I know that's easy. We're busy. We're super busy. But it's important. This is your life, and you only have one. You only have one in this time, in this place. Even if you believe in reincarnation, you only have this lifetime that you're in right now as you. So use it. Enjoy it. Love it. I mean, there's no reason not to. Some other things that you can ask yourself when you're thinking about that future version of you. How do I want to be remembered? How does the future me feel about me today? What do I want to accomplish? What will I look back and smile at? And what purpose did I serve? I know that last question seems kind of obvious, but really when you sit with yourself and you ask yourself these questions, don't place a judgment on it. It's not silly. Even if you're trying to find your purpose, it's not silly to ask yourself, what purpose did I serve? Look back on your life and maybe your future self will jump in and help you out. All right. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to mention it again because I think it's super important. The monetization of life. Although your life purpose, it's a pretty broad subject that is highly individualized. And there are so many ways that you can discover more or discover pieces of it, or there's so many ways that you can serve a purpose, really. But in the time and place and day that we live in, it's so easy to forget about purpose and replace it with hustle and just making money or thinking that our purpose is money. I really hate that we live in a society where we've had to monetize our hobbies and the things that we're passionate about, and it causes us to lose passion. It causes us to hate the things that we used to love, and that's not good for anybody. We need downtime. We need things that we can enjoy just for the sake of enjoying them and not because they're making us money. So I definitely encourage you, if you don't already have a hobby that you have not monetized and will not monetize, get you a hobby. Mine's singing in the car because no one can see me. I enjoy it and I'm not good at it, so I'm not going to monetize it anytime soon. So find you a hobby that you can do that you're not going to monetize and that you do enjoy. But if you do want to monetize a hobby and you're trying to find your purpose, and you're trying to choose something that you're passionate about, that you have skills in, and you're just trying to find a path that can help you survive and live out your purpose, you want to look for what lights you up, but also has that greater purpose component. So something that lights me up, something that I absolutely love, I love makeup. I like doing my makeup. I like, watching makeup tutorials, buying makeup. I do. I love makeup. But I don't have any answer as to how me monetizing those makeup abilities is serving any sort of greater good. Now, I know that it could for some people, but for me, I feel like it's just going to be how I end up hating it if I were to try and monetize it. Sure, I could start a YouTube channel doing makeup, but again, I'm not passionate about monetizing it. I'm passionate about just doing it and having fun with it. So again, I encourage you to find a hobby that you can be passionate about, and just be passionate about for the sake of being passionate about it. It should be something that you enjoy, something that's just for you, and it's a form of self-care. It's a way to show yourself and others that something can be valuable and rewarding without bringing in any money. I'm going to jump off my soapbox about monetizing our hobbies, but I just had to throw that in because I think it's so important and so relevant in the time and place that we're in. When you're looking for your life's purpose, I like to think about it like that game Guess Who, if you've ever played it, where you name like the different people and you put them down and you end up trying to guess who the other person has on their card. It's life and finding your life's purpose and getting on that track that lights you up and that just fulfills you and your dream, just entering your dream life. It's a process of elimination. And the biggest thing is getting clear on who you really are as your authentic self, what you really value and what you believe, and just who you are at your core without limiting beliefs, without what other people say about you or the judgments or, labels that people have put on you. It's getting to know and love yourself. And once you can do that, you create parameters that your purpose is going to fall into. So here's a good example. I really value peace and I value nonviolence and nonviolent conflict resolution. So if I value peace and nonviolent conflict resolution, my purpose is probably not to serve in the Army. And I know that sounds silly and obvious, but so many people are like, yeah, I want to make a lot of money. I don't at all agree with, big corporations. And then they go and be the CEO of a big corporation for the money, even though it's not in alignment with their values. And that's one of those mistakes that I was talking about earlier. So what you want to do, again, look for places where your skills and your passions intersect and find that sweet spot where it's something that if, you can monetize it, it serves a greater purpose. Not necessarily that you have to monetize it, but I know the world we live in, many people are looking to monetize their purpose and be able to survive and be in their purpose. So look for where your skills and your passions intersect and look for that purpose that's higher than yourself. If you're still alive right now, I said this earlier, but I want to remind you. If you're still alive right now, that means that you still have a purpose. You're still breathing, you're still here, you're still alive for a reason. So I want you to enjoy today, be present in the moment, and stop worrying about if you're on track or off track or where your purpose is going to take you or what this lesson is. It's not for you to know. Just live your life day to day, be present, be mindful, live in alignment with who you are, what you value, and that'll take you where you need to go. I do want to let you know, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into who you are, I actually have a training coming up titled Who You Are. Who Are You? Who Are You? It's all about creating the blueprint to your dream life by digging into who you really are, what you really want, and taking the action steps to get there. That training is actually coming out on July the 25th. So if you are interested, I will link it in the show notes. Make sure that you grab the free PDF workbook with all the journal prompts and join me for the 5-part video series starting on July 25th, in just a few days after this episode airs, if you're watching it when it comes out. So I will see you then. Have a wonderful day.